Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 19th episode of the Social Good Podcast. Today we have with us Ricardo Alanis. He is the Director of Data at Nowports. Welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So you're kind of like the data expert. Can you tell us a little bit about, your experiences and how what you do at Nowports and also your in the
Yeah,
future? Mhm.
happy to share that. Well, I started as a chemical engineer back in almost 10 years ago when I was able to find a lot of value in understanding what was happening in the data world. I was lucky to be exposed to the data science phenomena way before the AI conversation is happening today. I find myself really interested on the use of data to impact lives and how we can improve the operation of our organizations. Back in the day, I was really focused on the use of data for governments and civic society. And I joined a team named Codeando Mexico, which is a civic organization, which I am part as a volunteer at this moment. But then I continue helping organizations and companies, and one of them was Nowports, a company that seeks to improve the way that we do logistics in Latin America. In Latin America, we have an issue of interconnectivity, visibility, and transparency of information that we provide or that we are able to get by default in our services.
Mhm.
From different parts of Asia, Europe, North America towards Latin America, which is the region that we are stronger in what we service to. So my role is to help our organization to gather data and provide that visibility and transparency to our clients and actually building value by those elements of transparency. So
Okay.
since I have been working with that, that's something that we continue doing by using data sources and algorithms to give
Okay.
visibility and certainty on the data.
What do you mean by interconnectivity when you refer to that being a problem in Latin America?
Yes, what we have in our governments in Latin America is different um, points of contact and different kind of data sources. So logistics, moving a container from one place to another in the world is something that has a couple of hundreds of years happening, and the processes that happen around that require several points of documentation and processes that are certainly legacy, that are complex, that are paper based, that are lagging in information.
Mm.
So when you work with different countries in Latin America, you will
Mm.
have the challenge to process that information, to have a unified point of processing or visibility. So you will work with different governments, different process, different documents that are um, that it is a challenge to provide a unified point of view of that information and interacting to those elements. So we use data, for example, to extract information out of the different kinds of sources that the pricing information is. We use data and AI to tend and follow through our different clients and the needs that happen through the delivery process.
I see. I
We
see.
also give proactive visibility in invoicing, and that and invoices will require, as we are in different parts of Latin America, and there's complexity in the way that we provide the goods that we move around and the kind of financial services that we can provide will
Mm-hmm.
require different challenges through Latin America. So that's a really interesting problem, and it's something that is both process oriented, but a lot of data issues are and a lot of
Okay.
challenges are behind that.
Okay. So, like, what are some of the things that data has helped to improve?
Yes. Um, I think this visibility slash transparency problem is something that is really inspiring to me. I have always thought that transparency in government, in organizations, and then in companies is something that provides certainty in business, and that's also something that pushes development. So I think that one of the best benefits that we have been working with is those sources that will be in different points of quality, cadence, to unify them and to make that transparent towards the client is something that has given a lot of visibility. We have found that, for example, given certainty, given a certainty that is not uh, easy to do out of the box, which is providing a proactive quotation for routes that connect Asia and Latin America, for example. Having that proactive visibility that instead of taking hours or days to provide the visibility of the cost that will have that movement, to have that in minutes or instantly that we're working and providing that in our systems maximizes both the economic development because we are moving things faster in the economic region that we're working with, but also provides us of a economic benefit. So having that visibility and certainty through the process of logistics is something that um, helps develop a wider business and a better business overall.
You mean visibility, right? For the different like
Yes.
data points.
Yeah, the visibility
Okay.
and certainty, because one thing is that you see something and another thing is that you trust that point.
Oh, I see. So how can you like provide more trust for the data points that you have?
Yes, by mixing sources of information and validating and having a good validation of the of the visibility that you're giving. For example, questioning. There is something really important in models, which is the accuracy that we provide in the models that we have. All, I have been really convinced that data processes, data challenges are trust issues. If you don't trust an algorithm, you cannot work with it and have it give you information and have it as support for what you do. So I think that one of the most important challenges is to bring sources and validation points so that you know what kind of accuracy do you have, and then if you fail, because all algorithms fail, what kind of failure process do you have? Failure handling process do you have? What kind of ways do we have so that we can maybe fall back to another process if the process fails, or on which ways do we know we have enough checks and points of validation so that we, when we have a point, how many times are we double checking that, and how we maybe provide that uncertainty and we communicating in a way that is sustainable to our client and they can use it. For example, knowing that maybe some process will take more days because there's something happened which is beyond of the control of the process of logistics is something that our clients value a lot. That certainly they appreciate that we provide that visibility, that maybe because there is some rain in some areas of the world or there is some challenge in some port in the world, it's gonna affect their transport. Knowing that even if it's not 100% sure, but we have the sources that provide an environment of this is what's happening and this is probably why our clients benefit of that and make them stay, and that is
So,
something which is
mm.
really inspiring.
So kind of like with that example, just so we have like a more tangible example here. For
Yes.
example, if there's going to be rain in an area where the ship is going to go through, like what are the different points that you can provide for your client? Like, for example, the like predicting the rain, is that one or?
Yes, exactly. Knowing that the route, for example, has some kind of in some times of the year, those rains will have higher probability. So that's the amount of certainty that's the environment in which the shipment is going through. Those we call them in algorithms and machine learning, we call them features.
Mm,
What kind of features are happening through the, for example, there's a point which is super important, which is the ETD, ETA, the estimated time of delivery and
mm,
arrival, which is of departure and arrival, which um, in turn the arrival, of course, will be affected because you probably have a book ETA, but you know that there's things that happen through the environment of achievement that
mm,
um, impact and
mhm, mhm.
will make some achievements to have a delay that we expect to
Okay.
happen in
So how
some
are you guys
cases.
calculating that ETD or ETA?
We use algorithms that use those features that happen to be related to the process of shipments, which is
Mm,
the place that you came from, the place you're going through, the places you're transporting to, the time of the year, the kind of what load do you have,
mm,
so those elements that are in the context of the achievement through the time that it's happening
mhm,
will give you an idea, and the route will give you, it's like when you take a route in using Google Maps or Uber, right? You have an
mm,
estimation of how many minutes or time it's gonna take from one point to another. But this is happening through the ocean, in routes that are being shared by many
mm,
containers at once. So sometimes they are shared. Sometimes we have updates by the information that um, the the transportation vessel is doing, or they give it to us. So and also we have allies that provide us more
Oh, I
data
see.
sources that give us the environment to
Mm.
have certainty, and this is something that is calculated by our allies and ourselves, and we strive to have better precision in that.
And who thinks of, I mean, who makes up the algorithm?
We do.
Okay, so it's
We
like proprietary.
we have a proprietary work, and then we complement it with our allies that provide us for signals that
Mm,
they also have their own, and we
mm,
get those and we learn and we compare that to what's happening, and then
mm.
we learn how to fix it and get better precision over time by looking at the past and then propagating to the future.
What's another thing besides the weather that's a factor?
Certainly the route, and then some of the delays happen because of the port, the things that happen on the ports, the amount of work that they have, or even if it's they have the capacity to provide the reception of vessels. When we were on the COVID emergency, we had almost a queue in some of the ports, and that will be there will be some delay on the time that a vessel will take from the moment that they arrive
Mm,
geographically to a port to the time that the actual container could be loaded off because of the queue that they had on providing that capacity to
sorry, the
work
what?
with it.
The
So
what?
there was a queue, like there was a line of people
Oh, I see.
uh, that will be first loaded off from the
Mm,
vessels that came before. So even if you were geographically in the point
mm,
of delivery, you will still have to wait some time for that
okay. Okay.
achievement to be finished. So that's one example of visibility. That's
Mm,
something that gives certainty when you are operating, but certainty that starts from the amount of information that you provide in the start of the service, the
mm,
quotation, the um, if you have those calculations, you also can have some. some estimation of the costs that will happen because of delays, or
Right, right.
also, yeah, that is an environment that we start to work with. And also by the data sources that we have, which is also the industry we work with, we complement that with financial services, which are
Oh, I see.
also our main goal is to drive developing growth to our allies. So we provide financial services that complement that those transportation costs that they come with us. So we know what they're moving, we know how many times are they moving. So with that information and the help that they have with their business, we can provide inventory financing and insurance for the shipment. So we start like
Mm,
providing a global, a complete service, so that we become a fundamental ally to our
I
to
see.
our the companies that work with us.
I see. So like, not just the shipments, but also the invoicing and the cost projections.
Yeah, we strive to, yeah, exactly,
Mm,
to provide in the environment of the things that they're shipping, provide an environment of inventory financing, or financing those things that they're going to send with, or even just having a good financial, um, some risk mitigation from the
oh,
transportation itself. So trying to work with the companies that work with us with the information that we have from them
mm,
to provide to for financial services that are around what they do
okay,
in
okay,
transportation with us. So that's a complementary, really important service that we
okay.
provide too.
Are you guys operational in Latin America only, or outside of Latin America as well?
We connect with the world. We are focused in Latin America and the developing world. So we are passionate about the challenges that the developing world has in terms of connectivity, visibility.
Mm,
We have learned from that, but yeah, right now we are really focused on the Latin America, which is the market we started with.
okay, so basically imports into Latin America and exports out of Latin
Yeah, most of the time,
America.
but we are able to move whatever is needed.
Okay. And what are some of the goods being shipped from and out of Latin America?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of space for the automotive industry,
Mm,
all the parts and whole cars
yeah.
transportation. That is something that happens a lot between Asia and Latin America and North America, which is the pathways that we have the most. Um, we have a lot of representation of the industrial machinery. We have a representation of commercial goods environment that happens. We have a lot of bags, things that
Mm,
are around the wholesale slash um, yeah, groceries environment of goods. We have some agricultural. We have some um, medical. We also, I am biased towards the maritime shipments because they are like big in terms of mass. We transport a
mm,
lot, but
yeah.
then there's really important transportation that happens by air, which comes from like health, technology
Mm,
that is transported. We call it trimodal, which is moving by land, moving by air, by airplane, and by sea. So the most value driven transportation happens in the air. So those are things that certainly are things that must get in a fast way and in a secure way. So we have a lot of health slash medicine transportation happening through the air. So those are some examples of what we know around.
okay, okay. And what is your role at Nowports as the director of
Yes.
BI, data
Yeah,
science?
so my role is to provide guidance to our teams to have healthy data pipelines. So whenever we're ingesting data to have a supporting process that is stable, that it uses technology to be reliable in terms of getting data into our systems and data out. Also, to provide uh, a good environment for the use of data that supports our strategic work, that works towards giving visibility internally and externally on the information that we use for decision making. So we have a team that works with that, and having a solid backbone of data science that works with algorithms and empowers those two lanes of work with state of the art processes and
Mm,
tools that we know how to work with and to
mm,
develop in health.
mm. Okay, okay. Um, and so like, is AI a part of this? I think you
Yes,
mentioned before, but I couldn't hear you very well.
yes, certainly. AI in the sense of developing machine learning inside in-house algorithms that provide that visibility and also having interactions with our clients. So
Mm,
AI is important as part of data source that since we are really concerned about reliability, we try to make our AI systems highly reliable,
mm,
that have good environment of deployment so that the risk of the failure of those algorithms are mitigated.
mm,
So we use it to provide better visibility of the costs, provide that visibility of the transportation,
mm.
and have a healthy relationship with our clients.
Okay. Um, Sorry, going back to your the work that Nowports is doing, is it uh like an app that
Yes.
that they use from the ports, or what's the how does it work exactly?
Yeah, we interact with our clients providing the service of logistics. We mostly proactively look for them at first. We open up the business with them by doing the usual work with logistics, which is you have a need to move something, and we can proactively, they look for us or we look for them, and we proactively find those clients that are needing to move things from any place from the world
Mm,
to Latin America, or from Latin America to any place to the world.
mm,
And with them, we follow that process, we provide that service, then we open up that app in which they have visibility of the transportation. And from there, they can continue having more services with us in a self-service way if they may. Um, there's kind of different like a spectrum of integration of tools, technology tools in logistics. So a lot of people in Latin America still have the expectation of having a person they talk to about the
mm,
logistic services. So self-service for data sometimes is not so easy to do, but it's something that we're working towards to have that digitalization of our clients so that they work better with those tools. And then we provide anything that they need so that even they don't need to use our app, but they can use their own systems to track and trace their shipments with us with good connection to their systems such as SAP or their own inside systems. They can consume the data from Nowports, so that they have that visibility built upon their own systems. So we provide that point of consumption so they can do
mm,
that.
mm. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing right now, and what are your some of the goals for Nowports?
Yeah, certainly the data sources and providing that value continuously with our algorithms with certainty. Some of our data sources are systemically generated, already exist, but most of them we have to adapt. We use a lot of AI. We call it defensive AI in a sense, which is we use AI to structure data sources. We have a lot of sources that are emails, documents, and we proactively go and structure that information. So I think having to do that in an AI way is fun, but it's not ideal. We will really benefit from the environment to have data sources that are structured, that are useful out of the box. So I think that is something that certainly makes for some complexity. I think also uh, having an environment of value on interconnection. We have a spectrum, as I tell you, of digitalization of our clients. So we have clients that are highly digitalized, but if we have clients that are still working in a traditional way. So providing value in that spectrum of digitalization is something that is challenging to have a good product fit of the way that you provide that service. Your service has to be adaptive to those to that spectrum. So I think that's another thing that is challenging for us to work with that. And I think um, probably you have heard of that in many uh, opportunities. The talent is scarce, and we certainly have to develop it and to level it up in Latin America. That we can have analysts, data engineers, data scientists. We work a lot to build capacities in the tools that we need. I think we have that has had an evolution towards the last years, but certainly we have a spectrum also of skill sets that are available in our talent, and we are happy to develop that as part of the
Got you.
statement of the data team that we have.
Got you. So like another question that I have is that there's so many data points. How do you know which ones to, present to your clients? Which ones to focus on?
Yeah, certainly trust. So it's finding the usual things that are right and understanding what's not right, and trying to build systems that have defensive points of double check. That sometimes has to be manual, sometimes it's to grade the quality of the data sources and take with a little bit of a grain of salt some of the sources and try to validate that. And if it's necessary, share that some of that share some of that uncertainty to the client, giving
Oh,
them the sources, but
okay.
then providing the relative security that you have and the information that you have, providing proactive information, but also with the caution that we how sure are we of the data points that we're showing. So I think that combination, and also there's a lot of validation that is happening manually. We have our team internally works with the data a lot and validates it and double checks it and helps us with that. So in terms of AI maturity, we are not fully automated. We augment and inform mostly.
What do you mean by augment and inform?
Yes. So when we talk about AI maturity, we with the amount of trust that you have to the data sources, the more that you can leave it alone and let it work with autonomy. Um, I mean, systems that we have, we are not autonomous yet. We are in a place in which we are informing and making more informed decisions
Yeah.
to our people inside of the company and outside of the company. And with that, we actionalize. But we are not in the place that many other things are automated. We are more in the augmentation. Slash, some of the things are automated, but some of the key things are in the information side of things, and we provide that visibility, but we are not letting that move actions that could affect our clients for some key elements or for some key processes that trust is in a lower place towards having that autonomy.
So what is it that you do again for? like the
Yes.
where the trust is not quite there.
We just inform. We have
Oh,
those
I see.
information. We make that visible, and even we can provide the sources, and this is what's happening here. This is what's happening here. This is what's happening here. Client, have this information. Get your conclusion, or this is the conclusion that we have, and this is what we did.
Do you deliver the data through like a report, or is it through like a dashboard?
We work with dashboards and reports that are visible in our app and also in interactions that we have with our clients via customer success
Mm-hmm.
feedback loop, especially for our bigger clients that are industrial clients that are really large in size.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, so this is like a very interesting field. Like, do you know what the, would you happen to know what the like biggest shipment item is
The biggest shipment item,
as far as
certainly the, I'm sorry?
sorry, as far as quantity?
Yeah, certainly the automotive part of things.
Mm,
So you certainly Latin America, the interaction between Asia and Latin America in terms of the companies that we work with,
mm.
there's a lot of presence on the automotive industry. I
Okay.
think that will be there's a lot of bias towards that. It's a field by itself, and a lot of work is on that. I think another secondary is the general goods. Which is providing this environment of shipment of electronics. We have a section of work with works with that, and certainly the electronics has that layer that I told you about. The maybe the shipment costs thousands of dollars, but what you're moving costs millions of dollars. So having security and mitigating risk
Mm,
towards achievement
mm,
makes it a really interesting problem. Like not just moving, but having an environment of that movement to be risk free and to have the financial services around that is really interesting.
it seems like it's like, not just the algorithmic, but like also, like a like a operational, logistical, and engineering problem, right? To figure out.
Yes, yes, certainly.
So is that where
We
you
we
derive
become
your,
that.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Is that where
A
you
lot of our
derive
work
your
is to be.
algorithms?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm,
So we are, and especially for our smaller clients that
mm,
will not have a logistics team, we are that partner that are their expert of logistics. We are that point of contact that will give them that expertise to move their containers around. So
mm,
that they don't need to have that capacity internally. They use have us as an ally that provides that layer of expertise.
mm. Okay, okay. Very interesting. So I want to delve really quickly into some of your previous roles. You worked as everything from a freelance data science
Yes,
consultant to data lead at Civica Digital, to
yes,
program lead at Sarah Uno. Can you talk a
yes.
little bit about your experiences in the past and what
Yeah,
you?
certainly, yes.
Mm,
But in parallel of what I do in industry, I have always been really motivated on the use of data in the civic society and government, and also teach it. So right now I'm also a professor in the National Autonomous University in Mexico and
mm,
the Monterrey Tech. I have also taught in the Wharton School from University of Pennsylvania and Cambridge
mm,
University, teaching Latin America programs on data use, and also I am part of the innovation council of my city, and I proactively work as a consultant for my state,
mm,
especially for the work that we have for um, gender and a specific protection of some section of our population and social services. So um, my work has been while doing things in Nowports, I have complemented that with teaching and helping our society have better data scientists and also better data work that empowers that process. So back in the day before Nowports, I was focused on the Cívica Digital, that is a spin-off from Codeando Mexico, NGO of data use and technology for social good.
Mm.
In Cívica Digital, we have a main product which is Urbem, that
Okay.
seeks to uh, digitize public services and these these kinds of things that you have to go to work with government offices to those make those processes lightweight and easy to be done. So I led that team of data that we work for handling that information in and outputting that information out, and
Mm.
also providing intelligence via chatbots to have intelligent conversations that will drive that service towards people that will have questions or will have open issues with these public services
Okay.
yeah, and
So
processes that happen with the government.
basically, working on chatbots for government sector sites.
That was one part of the work. Yes, I think the other part will be digitalization of the data sources and data processes that will happen on those public services, so that those chatbots could use them in the end too.
Wait. What do you mean by that? So
Yes, so,
digitalizing the public data so that the chatbots can incorporate them.
Exactly, exactly.
Wow.
That in a level, and before the chatbots to have digital services that will be seamless to work with and that will
Oh,
be available in web pages to
got it.
instead of in Mexico we have a lot of services that happen at the public service window. Like you have to go and do them uh, in a manual way, in a really annoying way.
Mm,
So we aim to work with that to provide a um, environment to the governments to have that process to be done easily and to connect the different requirements in a easier way towards generating a, we call it a civic wallet, to have a structured way and on saving those credentials that the citizen uses,
mm,
because we tend to use the same elements of
mm,
credentials in a government to do them. So having a secure, continuous conversation of those services is something that is really important for UVM, and that continues to be worked today. And we have worked with several governments in Mexico and in different places of Latin America to digitize those services. And with the with the statement that a good public service will drive more use of that, and that
mm,
will drive for better taxation and better income for the government. So the government is positively motivated for an efficient
mm.
public service that provides for speed and happiness of the civic of the people that request it.
Okay. So I'm wondering, what is an example of the public services being digitalized in action?
Yes, imagine that you work with your driving license, so your carnet for driving. The non-digitalized service will be to go to the if you already did your exam and you already um, made that process, and if it has some validity like 3 years, 5 years, 5 years later you will go to the government office. You will go there, reprocess it, take another photo,
Mm,
and that will take 3 4 hours of your time to get that process to be done. We work with some state data in some states in Mexico, it was state in
mm.
the northern part of Mexico, and we provide an interface in which that was possible in 15 minutes to
Okay.
just work with that and just get your new photo and do that without the need to go to the government office if the process required. If not, there is a point in which maybe because of the context of your license, because of the elements that will be needed there, you will need to still go to the office, but you will go with a more specific point,
I see.
with
I
a
see.
more specific goal instead of just going because the
Right,
process
right.
needs it. But yeah.
And without standing in line for hours and
Exactly.
yeah,
You don't know how much I hate standing in lines.
right.
Even in Disney, at this point in time, having a queue is
Mm,
something that you don't want to have as an experience. And you can always digitalize queues. So we strive for that and provide a system to do that.
So currently in Mexico, they're doing like digitalization of the depart. Well, in the U.S. we call it the Department of Motor Vehicles, like the office where they handle their driver's licenses. So they're in Mexico. That's being
Yes.
digitalized right now.
And a lot of like city services such as
Mm,
permits,
mm,
alcohol.
right.
Yeah, we 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 seek to provide a non. You know that in Latin America we have a lot of perceived corruption.
Mm-hmm.
We we have a tendency to know that if there is some complexity in services, that is an open door for corruption to happen. So we strive to provide a real simple environment
Mm-hmm.
um, for that. Motor vehicle businesses, licensing, development such as construction licenses, use of the use of land, the kind of use of land,
Right, right.
education such as having the inscription to getting to an educational program that it's open, and so having an environment in Mexico, for example. There is some complexity on public education to get to the school that you want to your the kids to get into. So having that issue of queuing, having a queue that is healthy, that you don't waste people's time on the requirements. In Mexico, we have that feedback loop of understanding what you needed to bring in the moment that you're doing the service, rather than having transparency and visibility beforehand and making a seamless process that respects the people's time. We by having that visibility proactively, we make those processes be more be better over time and not waste time, and also that also provides self efficiency because you're not wasting
Mm-hmm.
time with people up until the time that they have all the visibility towards the requirements that they need. So it's a win-win situation.
So, what's like an example of a country that's doing this really well? Is there like an exemplar country?
Yes, I think the UK has done some really interesting work on
Mm-hmm.
digitalization. They are in the forefront of data sources and digitalization processes. There are some Eastern European countries. I cannot pinpoint exactly which one, but I know that there are some that are are being digital first. Like they are building the whole government in a digital environment and all the public services are happening in that environment. So, in the other hand, some of our governments in other places, we still are really reliant on the paper side of processes. So I think there's a lot of anti examples of contrasting examples, but I think the UK is doing a good job on doing that and recognizing that not all processes are able to be digitalized, but they work in a maturity process of those services to be digital
Wonderful,
first.
wonderful. What are your thoughts on AI? Because, right now AI is kind of like taking the world by storm, not without its, scandals or whatnot. But what are your general thoughts?
Yeah, I think there is something that was really refreshing from OpenAI and the environment, which is um, the recognition of five levels of AI that goes beyond the chatbots, that go towards the agents and end up in organizations that are autonomous. In the same way that I mentioned before, that the amount of trust that we have in processes is the amount of autonomy that we can provide to those services, to those AI tools. So I think we are in the point that we have to understand that the LLMs and the AI generative technologies are one of the first general like AIs, but they are not without failure. They are they are general, but they are not effective generally. So they can work in the environment of a really wide open list of topics,
Mm,
but they're still not precise. So going beyond chatbots and getting to agents that perform logical activities is something that we as users have to understand, that we may ask for an activity, but we're not in the point in which that activity is in the 95, 99% of accuracy. It's still one shot. If we use just ChatGPT for many logical activities, it's still on the 60, 70% of logical uh, accuracy. So it's something that makes sense,
mm,
but it's not useful logically. So that's still the maturity that we have to work with. We can work in tandem. We can work in with help of the AI in many of the
mm,
things, and many things we can leave it the AI to work in autonomy, such as translation, or but knowing that limitation of LLMs
mm, mm.
as
But
general light but
mm.
not general algorithms is something that is really important in the high spectrum of work.
But when you say like 60 to 70% accuracy, like are you talking about like solving hard problems, or like because like I think they proved, around a year ago or something that AI could, or ChatGPT could basically solve like a AP biology test.
Yes, yes, certainly. It's really important to double check the benchmarks that we have, and the benchmarks provide us to an image of where the algorithms are being successful on doing tasks. And what's what's really important is that even if they are able to solve some issues, they
Mm,
still have some failure rates. That is
mm,
super important. For example, Cloud 3's Sonnet had an 80% accuracy in undergraduate level knowledge, for example. Uh, the most current ones, for example, the 3.5, which is something that it's being used a lot in Cloud 3.5, it still has um, yeah, 60% of graduate level reasoning in zero shot. What that means is that
mm.
if you don't provide if you don't provide cloud of the context of the problem, it's only gonna be 60% accurate on the problems that it solves.
If
So
you don't provide what?
if you don't provide a lot of context, so you don't
Oh, okay.
bounce
Okay.
the context too much, just
Mm,
by the first go, it's gonna be 60% accurate. So what happens is that, and I don't know if you saw the O1, the new mode that they release, in which you have reasoning, in which a problem is divided and then solved. The agents, by doing specialized analysis and using the algorithms, LLMs, in a specialized way, we can improve that percentage of accuracy. But it's really important to know when to use those tools that are slower in processing, but they are more accurate. and what to expect if we're working with the algorithm itself. So, um, for example, like, yeah, so zero shot accuracy of Cloud Sonnet for undergrad level knowledge, it's 88%.
Mm.
Five shots is 88.7%. So it's a small improvement by doing bouncing the ideas. You have a small improvement of how accurate logically the algorithm is. So
So, mm.
um, and that's something to differentiate from something that makes sense. The answer will look as real even if it's not true. So it
Oh,
can have it can be congruent. It can be text that it's useful for us to understand the answer, but it can be logically or misinformation. It can just be wrong of what they say.
so basically, the more context you provide, the higher accuracy your answer will be.
Yes, certainly. That's what we call that's what prompt engineering helps with, providing that solid context and environment so that
Mm.
the algorithm is more accurate, but that has a limit.
Oh, what do you mean by limit?
There's a limit of how much context by the same statement of how you ask the question that will
Mm.
have an impact on the logic.
Mm.
The model itself and the amount of information it's trained on, it's gonna give a better logical accuracy over time.
Okay, okay. Yeah, like, but like, if you provide a lot of context, then would the goal be to provide like less context and then have it spit out like accurate information?
It, sometimes, yeah, sometimes you're constrained in context. Sometimes even the cost of having context in the moment that you're asking the question increases the cost of the model a lot. Like it's what we call the context window, which is the amount of text you can provide on the text of the question that you're working with.
Hmm.
That window, the amount of memory that you have to increase so that you have more information in the context,
Yeah.
there is a need to be selective over the context that you said. So there is a challenge there.
Mm.
Larger, smaller, more effective, the technique that you use to provide that context,
Well,
those are the questions that happen to that environment. Yes.
so what if there was like, like instruction or like, some sort of direction or instruction or maybe even training for the general public when they use ChatGPT to be like provide like
Certainly.
this type of context and like because right now I don't think there is any, right?
I think we are calling it something really complex. I think prompt engineering is concerned about that,
Mm.
but it has like that, like prompt engineering sounds like like engineering. Like, is it kind of like, do we need like, is there something more tactical, more technical, which is like
Mm.
prompt techniques? Yeah, certainly there should be, but um, understanding that the general chatbots have a logical limit, and
Mm.
then by having a better context and more
Yeah.
specialized algorithms,
Yeah.
you have more logical structure to give you better answers. That's
Mm.
something that I think it's really important for state of the LLMs and the AI that is happening. So I think that's some maturity that will be around us in this time and date, that we are in that transition from having chatbots and
Mm.
moving towards agents and intelligent organizations that are that that face these challenges on the way that we work with the agents.
Yeah.
And then the other hand, the other point of importance is how we handle failure. What I
Mm.
mean with that is that when we work with machine learning, we always have to be ready for failure,
Mm.
because the failure means the way that you're going to handle that exception that happens. In coding, we call it exception handling.
Okay.
You know that things that you expect to happen will not happen sometimes, one in a million. Even if it happens one time in a million, if that crashes your system and you have 9 million requests per day,
Mm.
you will fail 9 times over the day, right?
Mm. Mm.
So you want to handle that, and that's what I think the things that we have heard about people suing people because of the misservice that we had, like a chatbot did something and
Mm,
went to a bad place. Handling failure by the use cases that we're automating is one of the most important challenges, to provide that context of what do I do if the model fails, and how do I make sure that if the model gives me an answer, I have certainty that this answer is correct. So I think preparing ourselves as users, both as human and in systems that use these algorithms, is really important.
got you, got you. What are your thoughts on the statement that like every company is an AI company?
I am super biased towards that. I think I said this in a conversation a couple of days ago. I didn't say AI company. I said our tech company. Especially
Mm,
in the developing world, we are having that transition towards all companies are becoming tech companies that have to decide what algorithms are done in-house, what algorithms are going to be taken from external products, and how we incorporate that to our operations. So
mm,
yeah, I totally agree with that. With the grain of salt of the speed of integration of those processes to
mm,
the actual human operational point of using that technology. So there is a conversation that I like to use, which is the limits of the AI or limits of the product. Where are we going to put a person? Where do we want to have that service? In which ways? And where do we want to have an algorithm take in place, and with the risk mitigation or risk prevention of automation. What do we do to protect that process? Because if the if someone as a person responsible of a area makes a mistake, we can point to that person and
mm,
check their processes and working with that person to improve them. But when we have an algorithm, where do we look at? If the algorithm makes a mistake, who is going to fix that? Like, are we going to feedback the the organizational element that works with it, or is that from our IT perspective? Is that going to be worked by the IT? What kind of feedback loop do we do so that
mm.
the operation works?
Okay. And how do you know like which like what's the process like for deciding which features have AI incorporated into it?
I think it's super important to optimize for a company, understand where the value is. For example, in Nowports, it's really easy. If we provide speed and accuracy to the quotation that we provide,
Mm,
and then we give visibility towards the service that we have,
mm,
and proactive checkup of the issues that we face,
mm,
we will provide a healthy service. So if there is a service that provides that value and help us give that value, we can incorporate it. But
mm,
sometimes our data sources will provide for a better source or a better information towards a better service on that. So we
mm,
have to make a choice if that's going to be in-house or out of house, or incorporating the product, and if that's part of the product that we're going to provide, or that's going to be the differentiator of a company. So every company wants to have an strategic point of view and an operational efficiency.
mm,
Operational efficiency is not strategy. So what happens is that if we do something efficiently, that can provide some advantages, but the company itself has to be proactive and deciding where is it going to make bets to drive drive the business forward. So
mm,
that's where the AI should be facing. Like, operationally, we have the amount of AI to provide services that are efficient, and that's not the disruptive part of things. It's just making our usual work being empowered by better operations.
mm,
And then, in the other hand, if we have bets, how AI gets into the picture, and how we can um, maximize the business objectives by
Right,
using
right,
AI.
right.
If it's speed,
Yeah.
giving that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So last question for you before I let you go. What would you say is like in um what would you say is the right way to approach, or what's the process like when you are deciding to open up or share user data with for AI training or for the public? Yeah.
Yes. I think the it's really important to understand that today providing information and providing data sources is it drives the move the world forward.
Yeah.
Having an API, having an open service, having a open consumption will keep value and will optimize things
Mm,
proactively for many
mm,
other people. So I think having an ethical environment in which we provide, uh, in which we are not creating risks by that information to be consumed is a basic necessity. And then understanding what role does the data that we have play in the data environment of the world. Understanding what is people when we have the data source which covers some important entities, like if we're describing shipments, what does achievement mean? What information does achievement convey, and what is someone expecting to read when they want to consume achievement, and what stories are they going to cover with it?
mm.
And with that in mind, developing the standards and the consumption processes for that is super important. So I
Like,
think,
mm. Should
yes,
a user have a say in whether they want their data to be used though?
certainly, and the generator should listen to that opinion and should structure that opinion. And okay, so I provide shipment information. This is what achievement means data wise, and this is how we provide value on that. And this is what the choices that we made of not making something visible. We didn't share this because this is proprietary, or you can pay for this. Being transparent on what those levels of information are, I think it's super important. So I think data processes are communication processes.
I see.
So in as any communication problem, you have the person that emits the message, the person that receives that message, and the content of that message.
Mm,
So I, in the same way that communication should be efficient and should be transparent and should be, even if in the personal communication, we have to strive to our message to be heard, and we have to hear people to understand them. Data wise, we have to be open to provide. If someone is expecting a message from us, such as shipments, we call them messages, like the data messages. If they're expecting shipments, what are they expecting? Which occurrence, in which refresh rate, in with what kind of data structures? And they should have a say that this doesn't make sense, or I need better, or I need more continuous data generation, and we
mm.
provide the best message for that. That also happens in government. That also happens in NGOs. So providing good communication by data, I think it's super key, and I think that would be my most important, besides ethical, the ethical consideration that we have to do.
So what if like a certain individual doesn't want their data to be used or shared?
Yeah, I think for example that is being the receptacle of the data does not make you the data owner. And it's important that if you have users representing of your data, you have all these excellent regulations that provide for a privacy environment. And for example, it has been really interesting to see the maturity of Facebook
Yeah, yeah. I was
data
just gonna mention.
over the time.
Yeah.
Yes. So they started with a really open API,
Mm,
and you saw that what happened, like that it was used for many interesting things, but many really awful things, right? So it's really important that uh, when you are providing your data, the person that receives that data does not become the owner of the data. You're still being representative of that data if that's personal information or operations that are happening. For example, we have the operations data for the companies we work with. Of course, the governance that our services will provide is that if you are consuming data, you're only consuming your own data. You're not consuming more than that, and providing a healthy consumption and a secure consumption so that the tokens, the security credentials that you use to consume the data is secure and using the standards in the industry. That is something super important. So I think the privacy element that is covered by those privacy regulations is super important. So it is as much transparency as it is legal, and also it's a matter of having a healthy um, representation. I think um, there is a principle in development, in software development, which is you ain't gonna need it, which is you just develop the things that you know that you're gonna need. In
Mm,
that statement that I shared before, which is when we are talking about the concept and we're sharing it publicly, you don't need, like, it is useful to be proactive on having that visibility, but also having a healthy boundary of, if we don't have an objective of this data, it is better just to not share it up until of someone requests it, or it
right.
is necessary to do so.
Is
There, there
um
is a there is a concept there is a concept in open data, which is the build use um, criteria, which is if something gets requested 3 times, you
mm,
do your best for it to be open.
I see.
So I think um, that build use criteria, I think it's useful to know
That's
what to have open.
yeah, like do you think that like Facebook is sometimes lauded for or applauded for having like their data open source. But Reddit has closed their data to the public because they don't want it being used. They don't want it, you know, readily available to the public. What are your thoughts on that? But then like there's GDPR for Facebook in Europe with all those regulations.
Yes, I think uh, there's a spectrum of the things that, for example, especially talking about Meta and their
Mm,
holdings, I think they have done a job to make the data sources protected and controlled. uh, they face continuous challenges.
yeah.
So they are in the forefront of the challenges of the data use. And I have seen, for example, an evolution of Facebook to be more close over time. There is, when you were asking me this question, I think my first reaction is I am extremely cynic of what happens in the internet right now with scraping, which
Mm,
is in a gray zone of gathering information. What scraping is having a crawler, it's having a bot going
mm,
through several pages and gathering information and
yes.
structuring it.
Yes.
So besides having those APIs, there's a lot of companies having a lot of value being done by scraping.
Mm,
Um, and that's in a gray zone that is that it's still difficult to track and to
mm,
trace and to work with.
mm,
So I think GDPR, like policies, will continue to evolve to the reality of the consumption of the data.
mm,
I think um, we have to do we have to be industrious in our companies to understand what data sources we're using, what kind of conversations we're on to make those data sources available, and certainly have partners that help us structure those data sources. So I think specifically talking about B2B
Mm,
information, we have plenty of integrators that will do data gathering in a structured, legal way so that we can use that data in a license.
mm,
I think businesses have to be proactive about that. And then governments can also help validating those licensing on boundaries for the data use, and
mm,
regulating them proactively, and pursuing that. So I think the more that we move forward, I remember when the rules of the internet were much more um, loose, right?
mm,
Plenty of things that are being persecuted right now were
mm,
not being persecuted 10 years ago. I think there is an evolution of that too in data that is still happen. It's going to happen in the next couple of years. All the use of data as part of a legal environment of
mm,
safe use and sharing of the information. So I think compliance and follow through will continue to evolve to not to be a suggestion, but actually something that the government pursues and seeks forward to be correctly used.
got you, got you. Thank you so much for your time, Ricardo. All right, everyone. That was Ricardo Alanis of Nowports. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you next time.
Thank you. Gracias por el espacio. Thank you for the space.
Thank you. All right.
Bye bye.